Hello viewers, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Pelukam Kabe, student of University of Education, Winneba, the Central Region of Ghana. In this video, we are going to consider the road to the independence of the Gold Coast. As we've been talking about the Pan-Africanists in the Western Africa, we've been talking about the past leaders and the objectives of the West Africa. Today, we are to consider the road to the independence of the Gold Coast. But first of all, we talk about the First World War. In the first video, I talked about the First World War, which was fought between the year 1914 to 1918. And after the First World War, as I said, the Germans lost the First World War, and their colonies around the world was confiscated by the League of Nations. When I talk of the League of Nations, I mean it was an organization which was formed after the First World War to prevent the Second World War. So this organization confiscated the colonies of the Germans across the whole world. So the Germans, they were not happy, but they couldn't say anything until 1939, when they get a leader, which his name was called Adolf Hitler. So Hitler's point of view was to reclaim the German lands across the world. So it led to the Second World War. That is World War II. In this war, it was fought between the year 1939 to 1945. So during 1939 and 1945, there was a war across the world. So what happened is that the Europeans, the Germans, I talk about the first, I talk about the Allies and the Nazis. So this war was recruited by the African subjects. That was the colonies. The British recruited soldiers from their colonies across the world. When it comes to Africa, the British colonies in Africa, we have Ghana, we have the Gold Coast, we have the Nigeria, we have the Senegal, I beg your pardon, we have the Sierra Leone and the Gambia. And all the other colonies across the world. When we go to East Africa, they also recruited soldiers from there. But we are going to focus on the Gold Coast. What happened in the Gold Coast is that the British told the soldiers that were recruited that after the First World War, after the war, if they help them to win the war, they are going to ensure that they give them a good incentives. And fortunately for them, the First World War, the Allies won the war. They won the war against the Adolf Hitler's Germany, and they are also their company. So the returned soldiers that we call the veterans thought that they are going to receive their incentive, but they waited and waited. The incentive were not coming. So they were not happy. They were not happy with the British, but they couldn't say anything until 1947, when the first political party was formed in the Gold Coast. The name of the first political party was UGCC. So UGCC was formed in the Gold Coast, and the objective of the UGCC was what? Independence within the shortest possible time. So they formed the political party in the 1947, and they want independence within the shortest possible time. So the leaders who formed the UGCC, we have we have Apuaje, we have William Furiata, we have Edward Akufo-Addo, and other members. So when they formed the UGCC, they invited a certain Ghanaian. He was a Ghanaian. He lived in Ghana, during his school days, he taught at Achimota School before he traveled to United States to go and pursue his degree in economics. So the person was called Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. So UGCC invited Dr. Kwame Nkrumah to become the first General Secretary of the UGCC. So what we are learning here, we can see that right now there is a first political party that has formed in Ghana, which is called the UGCC. And they are all the members. We have Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who has been invited from the London in Europe to become the first General Secretary of the UGCC. So when Kwame Nkrumah came, what he was doing was he was a full-time employer of the UGCC. But those who formed the UGCC, they were what? They were doing it as a part-time. When I talk of what? I talk of J.B. Danquah. J.B. Danquah, he was part of the founding father of the UGCC. We have Akunwaje, he was part of the founding father of the UGCC. Edward Kufuor is part of the founding fathers of the UGCC. That we call them the Big Six. As for that one, that's why their name is on the Ghana CD. If you look at the Ghana CD, their names are on it. We call them the Big Six. So right. So the Big Six, they were all in the United Gold Coast Convention. That's the UGCC. So the UGCC was running in normal way, but Dr. Nkrumah's objectives was somehow different from the other members of the UGCC. That's the Edward Kufuor, the J.B. Danquah, and other members of the Big Six. So from the 1947, we go to 1948. In 1948, there's one thing that also happened in the Gold Coast that many of you may know and others who may not know. So in 1948, we call 1948 disturbances or 1948 real. So the veterans which fought for the British during the Second World War, the British government promised them, but they failed to fulfill the promise. So therefore, they were not happy. And there was also an increase of goods and services within the Gold Coast. And there was also the foreign domination in the economy or in the market of the Gold Coast. So it led to 1948 disturbances or 1948 reals. So as I said, we have what? The veterans' promises were not fulfilled. That is one. And the second one, there was foreign domination in the market of the Gold Coast. And the third one was the increase of what? Goods and services. And the fourth one, the British also cut down the cocoa trees because there was a certain disease that was called swine shoe disease. The swine shoe disease affected the cocoa trees in the Gold Coast. So the cocoa trees, many cocoa trees were cut down. So when these cocoa trees were cut down, the farmers there were no proper communication before the cocoa tree was cut down. So it led to the riot. It led to disturbance. So there was a whole lot of demonstration. That's why today we call them demonstration. There was demonstration in the Gold Coast. So after the demonstration, the British arrested the Big Six, all the Big Six. The British arrested them. They arrested Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, J.B. Danquah, Akunwaje, Ofori-Atta, and all the members of the Big Six into what? Prison. So that is that. And after they have arrested them, they released them. But British deal with the other members of the Gold Coast and ignore Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And this didn't go well with the General Secretary. So Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, he was in the UGCC, but he was not happy, and their communication with the members of the UGCC were not all that good, because right now they are arrested into prison. They have been released. After they have released, the British government or the colonial government is now dealing with the 5 members, excluding Dr. Nkrumah. So he was not happy. But note, one thing is that Dr. Nkrumah, he was a full-time employer of the UGCC. So being a full-time employer, he was working directly with the man. But the JB Dankwa, the Akwaje, the Edward Kufuado, they were part-time, they were businessmen, they were rich people, they had money. So they didn't get full-time to work at the UGC. So Kwame Nkrumah was going around, he go to Kumasi to talk with the peoples, he go to Accra to talk with the peoples, he go to other parts of the world, Gold Coast, to speak to the peoples about what? The importance of what? Political independence and about the objectives of the Gold Coast. So in 1949, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah broke away from the UGCC. He left the UGCC and formed his own party, which is called the CPP. So the CPP is called the Convention People's Party, which was formed by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And also, after the CPP has been formed, there was another important thing that we have to take note also that happened. The other one that happened was also Nkrumah organized a boycott. Nkrumah organized a peace campaign, which he called Strikes and what? Education campaign. His objective was not to invite what any route, but at the end of the day, the peace and education campaign led to route. So it caused a route because disturbances within the Gold Coast. So therefore, Nkrumah was arrested. He was arrested by the colonial government. So Dr. Nkrumah was arrested again. This time around, he was the only one who was arrested because he led the demonstration. So therefore, the colonial government arrested him and put him before court and jailed him for 1 year in 3 consecutive times. So Nkrumah was jailed 1 year. So 1 year, and this 1 year, he's going to spend 3 years. But every 1 year is going to go consecutively. So if you add all, it's going to go 3 years. So Kwame Nkrumah was put to jail, and the next episode or the next thing that also happened again is that when Kwame Nkrumah was in the prison, he was writing letters to his party members. Right now he has a party, as we have discussed already. He has a party which is called the CPP. So he was writing members. He fraud letters. He write letters and fraud it out to some of the members of the UGCC, and they send it out to go and like advise them how they can help and fight for colonial freedom and fight to avoid the British or the colonial government. So they presented their cases to the British government or the colonial government, that the colonial government should organize election so that we can see how the Ghana, how the Gold Coast, as at that time, that's what we call it. We call it the Gold Coast. How the Gold Coast we can do our own things, because there was, before the colonialism, the British were taking over everything. So and the British government accepted it. So the first general election that was held in the Gold Coast happened in 1951. In 1951, the first general elections took place in the Gold Coast. So from 1951, as they were held elections, Nkrumah was still in prison, but his party, CPP, also were part of the candidates that was going to take part in the elections. So after the elections, the CPP won 34 seats. Out of 38 seats. The CPP won 34 seats out of the 38 seats that was available. So when I say 38 seats, I'm talking about the parliament. So in the parliament or the National Assembly, one of CPP had 34 or member of parliamentarian, which Nkrumah himself was part of the world. He also contested for the election, so he also won in his constituency or in his area. So he was part of the 34. So right now the British government or the colonial government has no choice. They have to release him from prison. So Dr. Nkrumah was released from the prison. that was very wonderful. He was released from the prison, and the next day he became the leader of the government business. So what is happening? So from 1951, when he was released from the prison, right now he's the leader of the government business, and he rested in that position for at least 1 year. Before 1952, he became the first prime minister of the Gold Coast. So right now, from prison in 1951 to become the leader of the government business, and from the government business 1 year later he becomes the prime minister. So he was what? Right now Nkrumah is the prime minister of what? The Gold Coast. Ghana is still under the colonial rule. So from 1951, Nkrumah he went hand in hand with the Gold Coast, the Gold Coast government. That is the British government. They worked for the next 4 years. The second election which took place in the Gold Coast was 1956. So right now we have learned which year the first election took place in the Gold Coast. So we are learning the second election which took place in the Gold Coast. And the second election also took place in 1956. So 1956, another second election also took place. In 1956 election, CPP also contested it, and Nkrumah won massively in the 1956 general elections. So he continued with his job as a prime minister. The CPP won massively in the 1956 general election. So that means that now we are now close to the independence of the Republic of the Gold Coast. So the question that I will ask is, when Nkrumah won elections, Nkrumah's objective was to ensure the Gold Coast will become independent. Gold Coast becomes independent. That was the objective of the UGC, the CPP. The CPP. Their aim of CPP is what? Independence now. That is the objective or the aim of the CBP. That's independence now means we want independence now, as compared to the other party, the UGCC, which also have the objective of independence within the shortest possible time. So right now in Nkrumah, we won the 1956 election. So the next year, 1957, as many of you know, the 6th March of 1957, Nkrumah and the British government agreed to give political freedom to the Gold Coast. So they declared the independence of the Gold Coast in 6 March 1957. So there's one thing that we have also learned here that many people don't know, and I think you are fortunate to be part of this channel to learn these things. There was 6 March 1844. I like this part. In the 6th March 1844, the British government, they signed an agreement with the Gold Coasters. That is, so in the olden days, when we talk of the Gold Coasters, the British, we know that the Europeans, when they came to the coast of the Gold Coast, which is now called Ghana. When they came there was some disagreement. There was some disagreement between the Asantes and the Fantis. We know that the Fantis, they live in the coastal areas of the Gold Coast. So the Asantes, they were around all over around the coast. They were fighting with the Gold Coast. Those who are the coast area, that's the Fantis. So the Fanti chiefs and the Asantes, they were fighting. So sometimes the Asante people, they won. They were causing trouble here. They were controlling here somehow. They were controlling the coastal areas. So the Gold Coast, the Fanti chiefs signed an agreement with the British government. The British government. For the British government to help them, to protect them from the Asante's invasion of the coastal lands. So, because of this, the bond of 1844, as many of you know, the bond of 1844, as many of you know, the British had the idea that since they have signed this agreement with the coastal chiefs, they believe that the land has been given to them to protect the land. So they were we call them protectorate. That's what. So the British think that it's right now they are in their protection. So they are protecting that. So they work or they ally with the Fanti chiefs and they fought against the Asantes. And which they did. They helped the Fanti chiefs. They helped the Fanti chiefs and they fought against the Asantes. And in 1900, as you all know, the Fantis and the British, they conquered the Asantes. And when the British conquered the Asante, they put the Asante into the British protectorate again. They conquered the Asante. They conquered Kumasi. The Asante chiefs, some of them they were arrested and some of them were sent to Seychelles and that happened. So the British think that since this date they were protecting the Gold Coast, so they find it reason that they should agree and grant the political independence for the Gold Coast. So you can calculate the date yourself. This electoral calculator have to calculate the date from 1844 to 1957. How many years? And the years, if the British have a good thing or they have a good thing to do for the Gold Coast, I think that was enough time that they could have done it for the Gold Coasters. So let's continue. And what happened again is we move on to 1960. So 1960, Ghana became republic. So 1st July 1960, the Gold Coast is now a republic. When I was young, I didn't know these things, so I was wondering how we have 6 March is an independent day, and the 1st July is also a republic day. So independent, when we say the independence, during the independence, Kwame Nkrumah, he was not having full control in 1957, because in 1957 the British government was there. Kwame Nkrumah is the prime minister, but anything that he does, it has to be accepted by the colonial government before we can put it into practice. For example, today, Ghana, if you want to do anything, it has to pass through the parliament. Look at the e-levy. That is in the parliament now. Even though the government want to implement the e-levy, but the parliament has not accepted it. So therefore, e-levy is withheld. The same thing applies to the political issues. So in 1957, Kwame Nkrumah was the prime minister of the Gold Coast, but he was not having the full power. Anything that he wanted to do, he has to do it hand in hand with the British government. If the British government did not understand, he cannot implement it. And so in 1st July 1960, Ghana became a republic. Over there, the British government is no more. We are now, that's what we call, we are now Ghana. So the name was changed from what? From Gold Coast to what? To Ghana. So that is that. Now we move on to the next thing that also happened in what? In the Gold Coast. From 1st July 1960, we moved on to 24th February 1966. 24th February 1966. So viewers, one thing that we have to know is that after the coup d'etat in the 24th February 1966, we are going to end it here. But the next video, we are going to talk about the achievements of the Kwame Nkrumah as the Prime Minister and other important issues that happened during the time of the declaration of the independence. And also, we also consider what happened after the Kwame Nkrumah overthrow. So thank you very much for being part with me to this time around, and let's stay together. Please kindly like, share and subscribe the video so that we can continue this channel. I love you all, and as I said, if you have any information that you will give me, please, you can equally write at the comment section. I will humbly take it and apply it. We are all learning together. No one is what? No one has the monopoly of wisdom. I'm not the monopoly of wisdom. You too, you know something, and when you comment, I'll be very glad to add it to my knowledge. Thank you very much, and God bless you.